Hello, neighbor. What's up? So thank you for coming to hang out with me today. So today is the last series, the last part of Divine Rivals. Yo, who's excited? Okay, so we've done part A and part B, and this is the last part. And this part is quite lengthy, so I'm just going to jump into it. Any gist I have for you will be from next episode, okay? So where we stopped at the last part, we saw that Iris left Oates, the city, to become a war correspondent. You know, her mom had just died. She did not have any other family. She's like, okay, let me go and find my brother. Let me become war correspondent, reporter. He left earlier as a soldier to see if our paths will cross. At least that'll be some comfort to me. So that's how she arrived at this place, Avalon Bluff. She met the lady that's heading the house she's staying at. What's her name again? Marisol. And then she also met Ati, another war correspondent, another reporter. So they're all there together. And all of a sudden, Roman shows up, yeah? And he shows up at the time when he's supposed to be lying flat on the ground because Dakre, that's god that is warring with Enver, but that male god that is warring with Enver. There are these creatures he sent, Atrials. And then this guy, Roman, was walking. At the time, the siren was going off for him to lie low, for the Atrials to fly past. You get? Iris didn't have a choice but to start running down with all her power to catch up to him, and then she pushed him down and she lay on him. You get? And then they had to stay still until the Atrials finished sweeping, and then they left. Remember, Atrials are like wyverns. They had they're white monstrous beings, and they have if you look up at them, they have them more like a rotten smell in their mouth. They're just disgusting and scary. And whenever they come, the wind will stop moving, and it's like frost will cover the earth. It's just so creepy. So that's the thing now. So now that these Atrials have flown away and then they're safe, and then Iris now demanded, "What are you doing here?" And then he now smiles "It's good to see you again, okay. Now let's start with today's part. Obviously, Roman didn't know of the siren and what it meant. That's why he was walking. He thought that the siren simply meant hurry into town. And at this time that Roman arrived there right now, Avalon Bluff, it's obvious that he's no longer working for Zeb Autry. And he's not marrying Eleanor, the girl that his parents wanted him to marry, the chemist's daughter. And he came to Avalon Bluff to escape from his controlling father. Do you understand? So Roman and Athi met. In fact, Athi was so ridiculously funny when she met Roman, because she was like, did the Atrial drop a boy from the sky? So that's when Iris was like, oh no, we worked together, he came here, I don't know what he's doing here, kind of thing. And Roman, he brought gifts for the girls. The gifts he brought for them was, these girls are writing war articles and sending via train back to Oates, but they've never actually seen their article on newspaper. Do you get? So he bought newspapers that have each of their articles, like one that has Athi's article on front page and one that has Iris's article on front page, and then he gave it to them, and then they were excited. Oh my God, my article made front page, things like that. So Marisol returned, because she was not around when this whole thing happened. When the Atrial came, she was at the infirmary, that is the hospital, treating soldiers and things like that. So after the Atrial passing, a few minutes later now, as Roman is still meeting Athi, trying to settle in and things like that, Marisol now came back from the infirmary, and then she was like, oh yeah, the new war correspondent, okay, welcome, things like that. And then the thing is, Roman and Iris were kind of, they have this electricity between them, because she's all rolling her eyes and whatever kind of thing. And Marisol instantly was like, do you two know each other? And then, this kind of thing that Iris was like, we were acquaintances. The other person was like, yes. So this kind of thing, Marisol just smiled. This kind of slow smile, okay, I see something is happening here. Iris was like, this guy, he just came here again to try to outshine me, that kind of thing. Because in her head, he's her rival, he's nothing more, okay? She doesn't know he's a boy she's been exchanging letters with and things like that, magical letters via magical typewriter. Marisol and Athi and Iris, everybody kind of, maybe Iris in the background, mostly kind of Marisol and Athi, they gave Roman orientation. Okay, this is what goes on and doesn't go on in this town. This is how you can stay safe, things like that. And then breakfast is 8 a.m. And we know Roman is a punctual guy, at least from the gazettes back at Oath. But the next morning, he was late for breakfast. He was late to breakfast. And the reason, he wasn't even in his room. He came in through the back door, just breezed, and everybody just kind of was startled. This person chattered tea, like, splashed tea. The other person shook. The other person, hit like on that table because they didn't expect the way he just walked in. And he's like, oh, that he's sorry that he came late, that he went out for a run, that he left at first light because of the hound. So he's being careful and things like that. And he was looking so good, wind-blown hair, color on the cheek, gleaming eyes, tangled hair. And his hair was a little longer. So he's looking all nice and sexy, dark hair, blue, deep eyes kind of thing. He said he likes going for runs, how it keeps him fit and things like that. And he says that he now apologized and said that he mistimed his run. So he'll be back on time the next day. And then he now winked at Iris. Iris was like, why is he winking at me? I thought we were enemies. What's with this sudden change in this guy? Like, what's going on here? And the thing startled her so much. Like, it was so unexpected. She actually spilled her tea. So later on, Iris wrote to Kava. She was like, she's not heard from him in 5 days. And then in her process of writing to him, Roman knocked on her door. He interrupted. And then he was like, because this is nighttime, he was like, do you want to run with me for tomorrow morning? She's like, no. He's like, I think you're going to need it. And also, you ran pretty fast yesterday when I got here. She was like, that situation demanded I had to run pretty quick. He's like, you might need to run pretty quick in other situations. So let's just start running. And she was like, oh, fine. So by the time he left her, returned to his own room, which is like next to her, the opposite her room, she just, as she sat down at the typewriter and was now staring, she was like, I don't even feel like writing this letter again to Kava. Let me wait for him. He said he left Otabi. Okay, let him contact me first. Let me just leave it and go to bed. The next morning, Roman happened to be a good running coach. I mean, these guys, of course he has to be a good running coach too, but they started like walk fast, and then when they're warm enough, run. So they ran for a minute and they walked for 2. And still, Iris' leg was burning. She was this one. I mean, Roman has a teaser like, if you give up now, you know that this he'll bested you kind of thing. That's the way he got her to finish that run. So Iris was thinking, there's no way I'll be doing this torture every day. I'm not coming out tomorrow. I don't care what this guy is saying. But then they now arrived on the hill and she now saw the sunrise. And she's like, okay, maybe the sunrise is worth it. So finally, Kava wrote to Iris and then she replied back with letters and said, please, Dad, can you email this to soldiers' families like you did for me that first time? Then, he has not replied now. So one time, Afi and Iris were in the garden. As of this day now, Iris had been running with Roman for 6 days, like for 6 mornings. She has gone on morning runs for him for at least 6 mornings at this time. So Arthur and Iris, they were attending the garden and Roman was typing in his room. So he just pops his head out of the window since it's like the garden is directly beneath his window. He was like, hey, I need help from you guys. Please help me each. Like each of you help me with a synonym for sublime. So Arthur was like, transcendent. Because she assumed he was writing about the gods. Iris was like, okay. Like, I would say divine. He even had to quass it out of her because she didn't want to answer him. He was like, please, Iris, just one. She now said, okay, divine. So he has sublime, transcendent, and divine, okay? So we know he's writing something. Now, Marisol, she came back from the infirmary. She mostly spends time there. It's mostly these reporters, girls who are mostly at home if you're not helping her out at the infirmary. So as she showed up with the captain, that captain from that first time now, that took Arthur to the front lines. So now he wants to take someone else. Roman was nervous, like he was shaking, but he was like, he'd rather go than for Iris to go. And then because Iris volunteered before Roman could say that he wanted to go, because he was nervous about going, but he didn't want to let Iris go. He wanted to keep her safe. That's the reason why he came west, far away from Oath like that. As he now agreed that they will go, Roman remembered, oh my God, I just sent her a letter as Kava, and that letter is really important. And this is not a good time for her to receive that letter. So he wanted to go and take it back, but he couldn't because we're already going up the stairs and Iris is all raving at him or raking, whichever one you want to say, demanding, why are you even going, Seth? Why are you even going? And he's like, because he cannot let her know that I care about you just yet. He now has to be like, twice the writers, twice the articles, that kind of crass statement. So as she entered the room, she noticed that Kava sent her a letter. And he also sent back the soldiers' letters that she asked him to post. That's when she now started reading the letter. And then he was not like, that he left oaths that he can't post those letters anymore. So she now crumpled the letter into her back pocket, because that was when Roman now knocked on the door that she should hurry, that the captain is waiting. So she now had to crumple the letter, put it in the back of her pocket. And as she was leaving her room, she just looked at her typewriter, and next to her typewriter was the jar of ashes, like her mom's ashes that she hadn't spread yet. So as they are going to the front line, she ended up sitting on Roman's lap, because there was only one room in the lorry for Roman, because the lorry is staffed to the full with supplies for soldiers. So there's only one room. Do you get that? Iris was because that's why the captain only wanted one of the reporters to go with him, just room for one person. And Roman was initially standing on the side step, but because the road was so bumpy, he could fall off. So Iris was like, okay, come and sit inside. So he had to lap her. Do you get? And it was uncomfortable. She would choke head. He would be like, do you want to break your head there? He now had to put hand around her waist and her mind. She was like, hey, what did I put myself into? And it was 3 hours. They stayed like this 3 hours on bad road before they finally arrived at the front line. The front line is a small town that residents vacated. They gave it up for the cause. So companies of soldiers, that's what they call them. They serve on 12-hour rotations. I'm going to explain what this company of soldiers mean in a moment. So that's sunrise to sunset. They serve in the trenches, okay? Like they go to the trenches and they serve. Like they stay in the trenches 12 hours, go to the front line 12 hours, come back to the trenches to sleep 12 hours. Then after a week of that kind of back and forth cycle, they return to base. And then the new fresh of soldiers will go for 1 week before they return to base. Roman and Iris will be shadowing Dawn Company to trenches. You get, like, they'll be going to trenches from the base. There's something, the trenches is close to the war front, but it's not quite the front line. Where they arrived at the base now, that it's still a match. It's all kind of a walking distance, but this is a setup. You have the base, and then the trenches, and then the front line. So the thing is, from the base to the trenches is like 4 kilometers marching, and then you get to that trenches, and then that's where you stay the night. But during the day, you are lying low in grass throughout at the front line, waiting whether they attack you or you attack them. Do you get? And then during the night, you go back to the trenches. So it's that kind of life. So 12 hours in the front line, 12 hours in the trenches, things like that. And you must always wear a helmet. You must obey others, and you must stay down all the time. So the person they assigned them to is someone known as Lieutenant Clark, one young friendly guy that looks like he used to smile a lot before the war. So they are going to be accompanying his platoon. This is an army division. So let me explain this. There is a battalion. When you talk about an army battalion, it's made up of 4 companies. And each company is made up of 200 men and women, okay? So that means when they say 4 companies, that's 800 people, like 800 soldiers make up a battalion, okay? So, and then when you talk about platoons is like a group of 50. That is 4 platoons is 1 company. So do you see the breakdown? Battalion is the biggest that contains 4 companies. 4 companies is like 200 men and women. In each company, 1 company. Then inside company, you now see platoon. Platoon is 50 people each. Okay, 4 platoons. So that's it. So the name of this platoon that they're shadowing, they're going to be part of, is known as Sycamore Platoon. The name of their platoon has a story that we're going to learn about soon. So they marched that 4 kilometers to the trenches, and Iris was out of breath. She was like, thank God Roman used to take me on that morning run. Oh. So there is bunkers there at the trenches that looks like tunnel inside ground, that it was brought out from inside ground. It looks so uninviting, as though it's like grave on top of that has outer body. Iris hoped that she would not have any reason to go and hide in there, whether it's from dark gray soldiers or his hounds. Normally, ATRALs are not seen at the front because, like I said, ATRALs, I feel like they're really sort of blind, because they cannot differentiate between dark race soldiers and enemy soldiers, in quotes, like, or rather enemy soldiers now. So as a result, they're not used at the front of war. Dark race mostly reserves them to terrorize villages. So at the time they arrived at this trench, thankfully the trench was relatively dry and clean. I think at the time that Arthur came, it was when it was raining and it was really bad, muddy and dirty. Iris, she sat beneath a lantern and Roman started to visit her. So she wrote down the day's highlights, after writing down the day's highlights, she now shifted, and then she now remembered her back pocket now crinkled. She now said, "Oh, Carver's letter, I stuffed it in my back pocket." So she now tried to start reading the letter. She had actually waited for Roman to sleep first too before she started reading this letter, because she's like, he's going to tease her if he knows who this letter is coming from. As for falling in love with somebody you don't know, if you're exchanging letters with through magical typewriter, she's like, I don't want that kind of thing. Let me wait for him to sleep. So when she saw that he looked like he was sleeping because his eyes were closed, she started reading the letter, only for him to fold paper and now start throwing ball paper at her. As he threw the first one now, she opened it and he's like, "What are you reading?" She's like, What do you think it is? He's like, "A love letter." Do you get? And she's like, "None of your business." He now said, "Who's it from?" She's like, "Why do you care? I'm not answering that." Then he now said something. He now said, "Hey, take advantage of me for advice." Obviously. But it's only that first line she saw, "Take advantage of me." She's like, why is this guy giving me ideas? Why is he giving me ideas? Like, rejected it. Then he now said, "Oh, I bet it's this dude writing you and telling you all about his sister, his mom, his grandma, so that he'll let you know he has women in his life. And then if he knows he writes so well, he compliments your skills and this." Like, he literally said what the letter contains, like at least the first part of the letter that she has read. And she was surprised, like, how did he get so correctly? Obviously, he gets so correctly because he's the one that wrote the letter. But then she's like, whatever, like, she just made it not a big deal. She just said, "Just go to bed, go to sleep." And she couldn't even read the letter again. She now had to just go to sleep herself. 3 days, they rotated communication trenches, like the trenches on the front line. Like, after they're meant to return to base camp after 7 days. I said so. And the thing is, it's really scary being on the front lines. Like, they're not shaking, you're just observing. You're not moving because you don't know what can happen at any time. And at night, they play some cards, they bond a little within themselves at the platoon. So by the fourth night, they're exhausted. Like, exhaustion has seeped in, her hair is unwashed. I don't think anybody has bathed at this point. So war times are nasty, honestly. Roman's beard is growing. He looks like he lost weight. He's haggard. His jumpsuit that he's wearing, the knee of it is torn out. This is someone that's back at oath. Come on, latest clothes. Rich man's son now, fine. Everything in pink clean. And look at how he's looking here. All because of woman. So Iris in her mind, she had to wonder again, what is this guy doing here? So she fell asleep wondering. And then she had a nightmare. First of all, she was at the trenches and there were hounds. And then she saw herself in her flat. She saw her mom. And her mom was telling her, you're going to make me proud. You're going to make a great novelist. And then she was now crying in her sleep. Roman had to wake her up. And then he handed her a handkerchief. So the next day, this is the 5th day now. It was spring, warm sun. Like, spring means the sun is warm. The days are longer. It was hot. Sweat dripping down the back. So Roman is just, in Roman's mind, he's like, thank God I have this oil leather bag. At least, even let it be my body, because he wanted the contents of the bag protected. And then he kept staring at Iris. So all he was essentially doing there is keep the content of the bag safe, watch Iris. Keep the content of the bag safe, watch Iris. So he was, in his mind, he's like, I'm here to watch Iris. Okay. The next thing, there's a strange way the wind blew, and then suddenly shells screeching. Shells are like bullets of that time, things like that, like explosives, artillery fired, and then the earth was shaking. They were under attack. Iris cowered on the ground, like squatted down, covered her head. And Roman had to cover her with him, like literally covered her with his body. And then, you know, this kind of thing when they're now shooting, boo, 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 boo. Then soil it's just boof, and then wood splinters. Now that they blew up, everything will now like woof woof, like, do you get? So you see soil spray on somebody, wood pieces spray on somebody, and the people that it will choke. So still Roman covered himself, like still used his body to cover Iris. So Iris was trembling. Roman now calmly said, get your bag. And in his head he was thinking, no matter what happens here today, Iris has to survive this. She has to write about this. She has to survive this. He wasn't even thinking about himself, just Iris. Okay. So there was another round of shooting, and then to protect her, he pushed her up against the wall, like covered her with his body. And then Lieutenant Lack, you know, the lieutenant in charge of the platoon now came and ordered them to retreat, that they shouldn't be there. So it was difficult because as they were running back, you know, trying to run back away now, back to the base, They met wounded soldiers. There was blood everywhere. And then next thing, one small round object came flying through the air to where they are. And then Roman saw it and now said, pushing Iris forward, like, hurry, hurry. She trips. He carried her, jacked her up as if she was weightless. Turned her around a corner. The moment he turned her around that corner, that small round object is a grenade. It blew up. I think, obviously, Iris was already out of danger when this happened. But Roman was still kind of like within the zone of it. So things just kind of blacked out for a moment. And then Iris now stared where she is. She got up. So besides just some things like maybe some mere scratches, she was mostly on her. She's nothing do her. She now got up. She was now calling, Kit, because she calls him Kit. Where are you? And then she now saw him. He was proud on his back, like lying on his back. He was just looking at the sky. His eyes were open. And then it looked like, oh my, this guy is dead. I don't know if I have to go like, Kit. He's not like, it's like, my back. She's like, we have to get you out of here. Your back can wait. You have to get you out of here. So she looked at his leg. He had pieces of shrapnel. Shrapnel is like when something explodes. Pieces of that thing that exploded. That they used to make that explosive thing. It flies. The impact is still... So it can't... Even if it's not the explosion itself that kills you, those shrapnels, you have to make space because they will choke you if you're not careful, okay? So the piece of shrapnel, it was on his right leg, outside of thigh and calf. He was profusely bleeding and Iris didn't know what to do because she's like, I can't drag him out of here alone. But she knew she can't leave him there. And Roman was thinking that he's not going to make it. And Iris was like, I can't leave this guy here. In fact, she now started thinking of herself growing old with this guy. Like their friend, them actually acknowledging what they both know they're feeling for each other. Because she's kind of thinking he likes her too. And she already knows she likes him. Maybe they acknowledge it and they have a life together. They grow old together. She wanted him. That's a fact. It was like, I can't leave you here. The worst is that I'm going to die with you. So Iris now, one soldier like that was passing. Iris was like, please assist me. That's how they ended up both of them now ended up carrying Roman faster than she thought, through that trenches back to a point that they would now assist him onto a lorry. And then the captain was like, oh, Iris, are you wounded? No. Okay, Iris, you have to help bring other wounded soldiers to this point because if you leave them there, Dacre will take them. I was like, why would Dacre take them? What's he taking them for? As prisoners? Kill them? What does he taking them for? But okay, let's keep going. So Iris's leg were sore because they had to carry like a makeshift what do you call that stuff that they used to carry soldiers, people that are sick, that trolley. It's not a trolley right now. That thing that they used to hold now. So they had to carry it. Her leg was bumped there. It was sore. She tripped at some point, and is that fortunate tripping that made her now see Roman's trampled back? Many soldiers have marched on it way, but at least it was largely undamaged. So she carried the bag because remember he was asking about the bag. So Iris eventually took the last lorry, and in the lorry she was sitting next to Lieutenant Lack. He was severely wounded. He was holding his stomach as though he's trying to hold himself. Like his stomach was gutted out. And at this point, his platoon is gone. Like everybody in his platoon has died. He's just the last surviving one. And he's thinking, I don't even want to survive. Everybody's gone. I'm just going to feel so guilty if I survive this. And then also Iris she was missing her mom's golden locket. Because when her mom died, one of the things that, when she went to the morgue to take her mom's things, one of the things in that box was her mom's locket. And she's been wearing it since she left Oates. But because in the root cause of everything, the chain must have snapped, so she lost it at the trenches. There were other soldiers around her. Some of them, all of them, none were dead, but all of them severely wounded and may not make it. And then looking at all of them, Iris was like, let me tell a story. So she now told the story of Enver and Dacre. The story where Enver outweighted Dacre. And why she told it, when she was telling her story, she was like, why am I even telling this? But she's like, okay, maybe this story goes to show that even though Dacre doesn't look like he can be defeated, he can actually be outsmarted, and maybe that's comfort to these people. After she told the story, Lack was like, okay, because of the story he shared, let me share my own. He now shared how, the platoon named Sycamore, they're actually all from a small town of a farming village. And when the war started, they all thought that if they enlisted and helped out in the fight, that the war would end faster. wishful thinking. But it's good to hope like that, Sha. So there is a sycamore on the hill in their village that has survived 2 lightnings, and it's been there for ages, like over 100 years or so. So they all etched their name into the sycamore, hoping that the magic of the sycamore tree will keep them alive until they return back. But now everybody's gone. An hour later, after he told that story, he died while holding Iris's hand. So Iris was at the infirmary, like that hospital place now. And Athi was not like, Iris, oh, you're back. She hugged her. Then Iris was like, where's Roman? He's like, oh, he just came out of surgery, and all of that. So she now went up to see him. And then he was in a hospital gown and he looked breakable. Like he looked so small, skinny, and Iris's heart just broke inside her, okay? So they removed the shrapnels. They removed 12 shrapnels from his leg. Luckily, missed all the arteries, so he was going to be fine. At least the leg will be fine. Then Marisol arrived too. She hugged Iris. As soon as Marisol hugged Iris burst into tears. All that tears she was holding back. It was just so horrible. So they all went back home. She showered, and then when she knocked over something metallic in the bathroom, she cowered, as though it was the bullets. The trauma was already on her. God, no. Whoa, I hate it. Afi had to ask her, do I stay with you tonight? She was like, I'm too tired. I won't fall asleep. And true, she never know when she fell asleep. And she fell asleep after she had just taken her bath and washed her hair. So she didn't even comb her hair or anything. So by the time she woke up in the morning, her hair was a hot mess. She slept with wet hair. So Kava didn't write to her, because when she now woke up, the first thing she now checked is that Kava write to her all these 5 days plus that she's been away. He didn't write to her. She was disappointed. But then she now remembered, I've not even finished reading his last letter. And she now rushed to her jumpsuit, Harry Potter jumpsuit pocket. She now brought out the letter there. She now finished it. So it was actually a love letter, because he ended up confessing that he loved her. And then there were specific words he used that finally made the lines connect for her. He was like, we are a transcendent connection, a divine threshold. Iris, your words to me are like a sublime feast that fed me on days when I was starving. She's like, transcendent, divine, sublime. And then he ended it with, I love you, Iris, say, like Kava. Then she's like, Roman questioned us for sublime synonyms. I don't want to think this is a coincidence, but she now checked his bag, like ransacked his bag, and sure enough, all her letters were inside, wrinkled, as though he'd read it a lot. He'd read them a lot. First of all, she felt relief, and then she now had questions. Was this guy playing her? Or is she a game to him? So she had to go to the hospital, that is the infirmary. He was awake. He was sitting up. And when he saw her, this hopeful tone, Iris, like you can tell he's happy. But then she now said dropping the letters on him. And then they had a big argument. She's like, you lied to me. He's like, he never lied to her. That he doesn't tell her everything. She's like, since when have you known? He's like, I knew since the beginning. And you were signing Little Flower. But based on you talking about the Gazette, the columnist position, I knew it was you. He's like, why didn't you say anything? He's like, that he didn't, like, it was not a game to him. That he actually thought she was playing a prank at first. And all of those things. But you know, the kind of thing she just wants to be irrational. Or just sometimes when emotions are overwhelming you, it's like, I don't care what you're saying, this is it. He's like, Iris, please sit. She's like, I want to go. And besides, I asked you to return my letters that first time, when I found out that it's not first I was writing to, and you said you couldn't. He's like, it's not that I couldn't, I didn't want to. Okay. Then he's like, please stay. But he tried to reach for her hand. She removed her hand from his reach. And then she's like, you just came here to outshine me. I know that's it. Because this kind of thing, she's just trying to give herself a reason to hate this guy. Even though she's remembering, he covered me. He was, he's the reason why I'm even alive. Things like that. And then she starts leaving. And so he has no choice. He gets out of the bed. This is someone who just had surgery the previous day. And then he's hopping on his foot. And he's like, Iris, no, you're not going to run from me. At least not without fulfilling my request. And so as he now hopped on the foot and approached her, he used the door frame for support. His request is, ask me my middle name. Iris, ask me my middle name. Then that's when he said, C for Kava. I never lied to you. My name is Roman Kava Kit. Like Roman C. Kit. Then he now kissed her. Like, you know, this kind of thing, kiss, kiss, kiss. This is like their first kiss in the book, and it was like so worth it. And then they backed the wall, and it was passionate. And, you know, they're all lost in their own world. It took a nurse, you know, making to interrupt them. And Iris was so red. She's like, hey, it don't happen again. And then she left. So she didn't, you know, normally they help out at the infirmary, especially when many soldiers are wounded and things like that. She refused though. So instead, she chose to be digging grave for those that died, and they'll bury them. It was backbreaking work, but she's like, I'd rather do this one than to go to that hospital and see Roman. So, but through the whole thing, she was processing her emotions, like her feelings for him. And then she was not remembering him, you know, all the times that he covered her, he sought her safety, he lifted her as if she weighed nothing. And she's like, I'm coming to love him in two different ways. That she's coming to love Roman face to face, you know, not just through the letters now and word to word, like as Kava and as Roman. And she actually reasoned that she knew that, Vlasta is actually her pride that is making her like this. Because she's afraid that if she lets this guy into her heart, he will either get lost in the wall, like, or he would hurt her. Like, he will either die and leave her like those people left her, or he would hurt her. Just afraid, okay? So 2 days have passed now, and Iris was in the garden. Athi now came to see Iris and say, Roman is back. You should go see him. That he doesn't look well. He looks like he has a broken spirit. And I think you can do something about it. So Iris went to see him, because Athi didn't give her a choice. And then as she knocked, you know, she was like, hey, Roman, it's Iris here. She was like, can I come in? And, you know, he was just distant towards her. Just replied her flatly, like, whatever. She's like, oh, so how are you feeling? He's like peachy, you know. He doesn't even look at her because he's leaning, you know, back against the wall. This kind of thing that his hand is covering his eyes. And he's just leaning his head back. And he doesn't even bother, like, opening his eyes to see her. Do you get? So she's like, I actually came here to ask you something, because she was trying to be all bright and cheerful, opened window, tried to talk to him. Did not work. Then she was like, I actually came here to ask you something. Will you go on a walk with me? Okay, not a walk because of your leg. Just go outside. And as she said that thing, she was just reconsidering, how could I have asked somebody that just had surgery 3 days ago to go and walk or go outside? But Roman is stubborn. Carry the clutches. For the first few minutes, he was doing okay, but next thing he was sweating bad. And, you know, this is the first time Iris is walking beside him or being with him, knowing he's actually Kava and Roman. So she was all of a sudden, she was feeling shy. You know, normally she's mouthy towards Roman. She's just like, whatever, this guy. But now that she knows he's Kava, she's not like, why am I feeling so shy? So next thing he asked, so what's your middle name? You know, what? She's like, my middle name starts with an E. So he now said, guess it. Ethereal. Iris Ethereal Winnow. Iris Elegant Winnow. Like Iris sweet E things. Then she's like, oh, I wish that my name is actually Elizabeth. My middle name, Iris Elizabeth Winnow. And then that's when he now really, they had a chance. He now really told her, I broke my engagement. I quit my job. I traveled 600 kilometers into Wharton land for you. I actually regret that back at Oats, I let you buy your own sandwich. That time that he ate sandwich at the park now. That has been haunting me. That, Iris, I wanted life with you. You know? Oh my God. This is so sweet, so romantic. And without his bad leg, some people don't have sense. I mean, if it's good time you did this thing that there is hospital close by, I understand. But at the time that we cannot patch your leg, you're still getting on a knee to propose. Okay. So he pulled a stitch as he tried to kneel to propose. I think it was his good leg, but still, I think it strained the other leg. So he pulled a stitch, blood came out. Iris was like, no, stop. Yeah, sit on this crate, wait for me there. There were many cats on that property. He was like, Iris, I'm allergic to cats. You know, she's like, don't worry, none of the cats will come close to you. Because she didn't want him to walk him back home. She had to go and call Peter to drive his lorry so they would pick Roman with it. By the time they returned, Iris returned with Peter, a cat was sitting on Roman's lap. The cat that she said would leave him alone. And Roman was wearing his scowl, like really. So their letter exchanges continued, although they both knew the identity of one another. So now Iris is still struggling a bit to reconcile that Kava and Roman are the same person. And she felt it would be easier if he read his letter to her, like that last letter he sent before they went off to the front line. She asked him, please read his letter to me. And, that's when he confessed that he was actually distracted in the trenches from reading the letter, because he knew what he said in the letter is all romantic, and he felt the trenches. It was not the time, and he was also feeling nervous. That's why he was throwing paper balls at her and things like that. So he read the letter, and when he was done, before he was even done with it, she straddled his lap. You straddle a bike. When you get on a bike, you straddle the bike. Yes, so that's how she sat on him. She was careful of his wounds. And the first thing Roman now asked her, she was sitting there, is, are you serious about what you told the nurse? That you won't kiss me again? Iris was like, no, to prove it, she had to kiss him. And then he now proposed to her. And they actually wanted to get married that afternoon, because when you're in the middle of war and time is so short, you don't know when anyone is going to die, you have to grab happiness, okay? That's when Iris was like, I've never slept with anyone. Roman was like, I've not slept with anyone either. They were like, we'll figure it out. So Roman wanted to ask Marisol and Arthur's permission. But then that sudden wind again, that wind, that kind of wind that blew and at the front lines, and then seeing the shells start dropping, that kind of wind blew again. It swung the gate open, the rusty thing. You now hear the gate swing, things like that. Iris had this feeling that they're being watched, but she couldn't say for sure. So what was that? The next thing is like, okay, what are we going to do now? Because both of them were behind on their articles. They're like, okay, let's set out our typewriters. They said working together side by side. So while Roman transcribed soldier stories, Iris got started on writing about the actual attack at the front lines. So it was a warm arrangement. They're sitting there, taking tea, teasing, talking of their time back at the Gazette, and just teasing each other. Like it was such a nice time. And then all of us, as she was still typing, it hit Iris again that, why was I unscathed? Like I wasn't injured or anything. And it's not like I deserved this. She felt unworthy, that others all took some kind of beating, some kind of injury, and she's fine. And she's happy because he's here with her. Roman had to be like, you deserve to be happy. He had to. And then he now wanted to get fresh tea for her, because in their teasing and stuff, they let the tea get cold. So as he was pouring out tea for her into a cup, his siren went off. And it's not that siren of atrials. It's that evacuation siren. Oh my God, that panicking moment. We talked about the 3 different types of sirens. Sirens for hounds that goes at night when you have like 3 minutes to hide. Sirens for atrials where you have 2 minutes. That one goes off during the day. And then this siren that keeps going and going and going, the evacuation siren. Next thing, they were hearing multiple lorries driving by. Multiple lorries, like soldiers coming back from the front. Those that could come back. So that means they failed to hold up that crew at the front lines. So that moment of, is this the end? So because I don't talk up to an hour here, there'll be a quick bonus following this. So that'll be the end.